Retirement sequence of returns risk is real. Guys, for those of you who retired recently or are just about to retire, sequence of returns risk is huge. Huge right now. Something these guys never worried about. Let it roll, baby. Let it roll. They don't care about all that stuff, man. They'll make $1 million tomorrow, right? They got it. Anyway, what is sequence of returns risk? Sequence of returns risk is the chance that if you retire in a bad market. In the first couple of years of your retirement, it's a bad market and your investments go, woo, off the cliff. What do you do? What do you do in that case as a retiree? Well, there are certain things we can take, as adjustments to that, which I'll get into in a minute. But there are things to know. If you do retire in a bad sequence of returns, which means the market is really going down like it was in 1928, right before the crash. People that retired then, and then the markets went down, huge sequence of returns risk. Also in the early 70s, early to mid 70s, 73, 74, before massive inflation took off, and also the markets weren't that great, huge sequence of returns risk. The people that retired in these years, their portfolio took a big hit. And the problem is that it's the big hit, but it's also when it occurs, because when you start to recover like 2, 3, 4 years down the road, your balance is so much less now than what you had before. It's hard to keep that power of the investing pot you had big enough to really affect it going back up again. Now, people that the opposite retired in a relatively good market, well, they might have the same amount of retirement savings they had a couple years after they started, or they might have a lot more. Now, if those people get hit with a bad economy or high inflation and stuff like that later in their retirement, let's say 10 years down the road, it's not that big of a deal because they've got such a big accumulation in their portfolio, they can ride out the remaining 20 or so years with not really that big of a problem, okay? But what are the ways you can combat sequence of returns risk? Number one, if you have a cash buffer, that's huge. Use cash instead of dipping into investments in your portfolio. If you can just let those investments sit there in a bad market as much as you can, I know from personal experience, which I'll explain in a minute, I have had to dip into my retirement portfolio, even though I had cash on hand. The second way you can do that is I follow the 4% rule, which is basically I'm taking out 4% of my nest egg every year. And it says also to adjust for inflation. What I'm going to do this year right now is I am not going to adjust for inflation. I'm going to leave it at that same 4%. Woo! Sorry, dry air up here. My throat gets bad sometimes. Anyway, I'm going to leave my withdrawal rate at 4%. I might even come down some if I can get some part-time income coming in. Okay, if you can do that, that's a good way to combat sequence of returns risk. Leave that percentage that you withdraw without adjusting it for inflation. Leave it steady. That'll help you to take less out and recover better 3, 4, 5 years down the road. The third thing, and this is easy for some, not so much for others, reduce your expenses. In a bad market, just identify what you can spend less on, like we talked about in another video, what are your needs versus your wants? I mean, it's easy, right? Some people, it's easy for them to adjust that. Other people, not so much. But if you can reduce your expenses, just don't spend so much in a bad economy. That way you don't have to take as much out of your nest egg. Okay, I've had some questions and in the comments of some of my videos. If we're in such a bad market, why are you taking out funds from your retirement? I'm kind of in a different, kind of a special case. When I first retired, I had no plans of buying a house, okay? No plans at all. Then I found this property and I was like, I gotta buy it. I know it's not the right thing to do for a retirement strategy, especially after just retiring, but I decided to buy it. Now, one of the stipulations in order for me to get my loan was I had to show some proof of income. I had no income coming in, no part-time job, no nothing at the time. So what I had to do is set up a series of withdrawals from my 401k on a monthly basis for just a short period of time. I think it was 3 months. But I had to show, even though I had enough money in my 401k, I could have bought the house outright. I wanted to take a loan. So they're like, okay, you need to show some proof of income. So once that got started, I was like, okay, I'm already withdrawing from my 401k. All right, I guess I had to do it even if I didn't want to because I want this house. The second reason I'm withdrawing from my 401k funds is health insurance. I go through Covered California, which is part of Obamacare. And in order to get health insurance without having to go down to Medi-Cal, which is California, you have to have a certain amount of base income, which I believe is around $18,500 a year, okay? So I had to show, or I had to pull income. The only source of income I had, again, is my 401k. In order to qualify for Obamacare, I had to pull at least $18,500 out of my 401k, which was my only income, so I could get qualified for subsidies, okay? Those are the two main reasons I even started pulling from my 401k, even though I knew it was a bad market. In this special circumstance, which, maybe not so special, a lot of people will get into that, right? I had to do it. So there's some questions that were asked about my health care. I go through Obamacare. I get some pretty good subsidies because I can keep my income low. But it's not like you can just withdraw $5,000 a year and expect to get subsidies. No, you get pushed into Medi-Cal, which is the California version of almost like a welfare insurance. So in order to do that, I needed to pull at least $18,500 out of my 401k. Add to that, on top of it, I had to show income for purchasing my house or getting the loan for purchasing my house. So that's the main reason I'm withdrawing out of my 401k, even though I had cash reserves and I didn't have to do that, okay? So I figured once I was doing that, okay, I'll go for the 4% because that's the rule that I've been trying to follow. Now next year, I'll also have to pull some more income out of my 401k unless I get money from a part-time job, a side hustle, whatever you have. If I can show other income for my health insurance, I won't have to pull as much out of my 401k, which, fingers crossed, I think I might be on track to doing that. As I said in another video, as far as like updating your resume for seniors, I've got some additional interest since I did that, since I updated my resume to kind of like guard it against ageism. So hopefully I won't have to pull as much out of my 401k next year. Even if I do, I'm not going above that 4%. I am not going to adjust for inflation. I am going to leave it fixed if I need to pull 4%. If I can pull less than that, oh my God, that'd be great. That would help me so much as far as, combating sequence of returns risk. So anyway, guys, that is sequence of returns risk. We are in the middle of it right now. For those that just retired, for those that are thinking about retiring, man, it's rough. It's a rough one. Hopefully it doesn't last too long. But you know what? Stay positive if you can. Hope you can. I am. And just remember, we got this, guys. We got this, okay? These guys, did they have it for a short period of time, I guess, but now, sorry guys, we're sticking to our retirement plan. That's what we're doing. Thanks, guys, and remember, we got this.